on the computer. So, sorry for the recording. I just started late. It's a hard place to be to realize that you're 2 to 3 seconds behind, even if you're doing the kind of funky math of cutting off refusals and that sort of thing and saying, well, if I hadn't had that contact call and oh, if I hadn't dropped that bar. And I started having these thoughts because this was with Finn, who is my first border collie. And, there's a lot of things that people say. One of them is just, oh, well, some dogs are just faster than others. And yeah, that's true on the surface, but then that paired with the thoughts that I was having started to become, maybe Finn's not fast enough to get me where I want to go. And maybe I'll never make a team with Finn. Maybe I'll never be the top spot on the podium. I kind of had this feeling of like, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like sometimes we make the podiums, but we're squeaking in on third place. Like we're just barely in there. Like we're not first, which is where I want to be. And that was disappointing because when I got Finn, my hopes were that he was going to be the dog that opened these doors for me. And to start thinking about, maybe he just can't do it and he's just not good enough to put that ceiling on him. That was really disappointing. But like I said, I had a lot of time in the car and I'm a pretty stubborn person and I kind of was like, fuck that. I think Finn can be better than that. So that's what led me to getting a fitness coach for the dogs. And I also made that call on my 3.5-day drive home. I sort of said, well, speed can be fixed, and that comes from targeted fitness and conditioning. And what I had been doing up to that point was sort of like dabbling in fitness. A lot of the people that are around would say things like, oh, well, I just hike my dogs and that's fine. And they cross train and they never get injured. And nobody was really doing concerted warm-ups or cool downs besides just like walking their dogs. So taking the time to really invest in fitness, coming home last year in December and pretty much saying like, December through March, Finn is only doing fitness. We didn't do any agility with him. We literally just worked on hind end and core. And the results have been palpable from there. So I kind of wanted to take you through some videos and show you what this looks like in the actual performance. So let me flip over and start sharing my screen with you guys. And if you have any questions, pop them in the chat and I will circle back to them once we get this all up and going. Let's see. So as I mentioned, unfortunately, I didn't have a whole lot from the West Coast Open, but I do have the events surrounding that. So I have the Canadian Open in August of last year, some from the US Open last year, and some from EO tryouts last year, and then a couple from this year, just to show you guys. So the first one I want to start with is biathlon jumping at the Canadian Open. And on the whole, not a bad run, but a few things to note. So let me see if I can minimize your faces over here. I'm sorry. So right off the bat, one thing I look at a lot is what happens on the first bar, because that's where we see a lot of arousal issues. So if you'll notice, his takeoff point is a little early here, and he peaks early before the bar. So if you have a dog that's commonly knocking the first bar, this is usually why. This happens with one of my other dogs. So it's about trying to figure out how to get them to understand where that takeoff point is. It's usually an arousal thing. What I do like about this jump, though, is you see him power off both hind legs pretty evenly, and he does have a nice rounding to his jump arc. Heading up to this backside, he actually gives me a really nice collection there for such a big dog. And then this piece here is pretty critical. So I do a blind cross after this broad jump, and he takes the last bar. And you'll see it's because my blind cross is not done early enough. So he drops that. But if we back this up, I should already be looking over my left shoulder. From his perspective, he thinks we're heading up in this direction towards this off-course jump. And because I haven't turned to look over my left shoulder, he has no idea that he's turning over the broad jump. So it's not until here, he's already in the air and he's sort of like, oh, what? And you see those front legs come down as he tries to adjust to make the turn. Additionally, on this in, I'm a little bit late and I'm basically just shoving him over the jump. And you see his takeoff point comes in super, super tight here. And he sort of launches himself up and over to try and manage to keep the bar up for me. So that's a really good effort on his part. He's being a really good boy for me there. Weave pulls looked really nice. We head back here. This blind cross was done plenty early. So if we just take a look at this, notice how I'm already turned as he's about 2 strides out from this jump. That's what he needs so that he can adjust himself and land on the correct side of my body. So that was perfection. Collection turn, a little meh there. He does put in the extra stride for me, so that's nice. And then here, so we're going to go over this double and then we're going to head to this backside. And we've got this backside tunnel discrimination here that I mishandle a little bit. So he comes up over the double and I don't trust him with the backside tunnel discrimination. So I'm slowing down my motion and starting to call him into me. But what that actually means is when he comes towards the backside, now I'm in his landing spot. So he can't take this jump. There's no way he can do that. And we get the refusal as a result. Whereas if I had just gone for it and just trusted my training and just run up here and trusted him to take that backside, either we would have been successful or he would have been in the tunnel, but at least I wouldn't have had a refusal. So we fixed that. That makes me late for this collection turn. So this is pretty crap here. Really, really wide turn from him. He almost falls on his face. I have to stand still to get him into the tunnel. That was a nice early blind cross there. So this is actually very nice. I see him committing to the backside. Head already starts turning and I'm reconnected just as he's at the takeoff. It could have been a little earlier. That would have been nice. That's part of why this jump form is kind of crap here. So he takes off pretty late. And when he's pulling his back legs in under him that way, he has to jump even bigger and put out more effort. Here, I disconnect. So if you look at my face, I'm not actually looking at him anymore. This is a super common issue for causing bar knocking. We pick our heads up to see where we're going, and the dogs read that and they get worried about where are we going. So he chooses to take off really, really early, jump really big, and he gets this crappy jump form where he puts his front feet up above his ears and his back feet are splayed out, and he's just like doing everything he can to keep the bar up. Into this rear cross. Really, really awkward rear cross on the flat. Rear crosses are obviously not my jam. Compounded by the last jump run around. So I just ate a couple of seconds on that one. 3 whole seconds there with that run around. So now I've got 2 refusals and the bar on the broad jump. So a lot going on here. There's a lot of me being late, not trusting the skills that we have. There's some arousal issues early in the run. And then there's a lot of him over jumping as I start to disconnect. Let me just pop you guys open. So let's see if we can pull open another video. This was another good one for looking at me being late. Challengers. Now I will say, if you go pull up this course map, this had a very AKC Premier feel. So it was much more technical than what we're used to seeing from some UKI and ISC style courses. Why are we not playing? We don't want noise. So you guys wouldn't necessarily know this just from the videos, but one thing to be aware of, if there's a straight line lead out and I'm walking, it's because I'm afraid he's going to break the start. I have trained very much a running start. So anything like this, where I walk out and then release him, if it's not to cue a turn or I'm not getting to a critical point, it's because I'm worried in the back of my mind. So this whole lead out right here just like kills my soul a little bit, because we could have just been running and that would have been fine. And you see again, he takes off a little early for this jump. So he's probably picking up on some of my nervousness about the lead out, taking off early. He doesn't take the bar, but it's still not ideal. Up on the Canadian Slatless Dog Walk. And we've got some really weird dog walk striding happening. So he short strides the way up. He puts in a half stride and then he just tries to launch. Really not sure what's going on there. Plus, I did this really hard push off the exit of the dog walk to the wrong side of the tunnel because I was not confident in my tunnel throttle or pull to this side of the tunnel skill. So honestly, he's probably just confused about where we're going right here. He was probably thinking it was the other side of the tunnel, and then I come in here and he's like, oh crap. Throw him in that tunnel, barely get my dog walk contact. Do this awkward rear cross into the weave poles here. So I probably instead should have, had all the time in the world, I should have come up here on this jump and just front crossed and pushed him into the weave poles. That would have created a more efficient line than this rear cross where I'm trying to pull him. And if you look how much extra yardage he eats up here, I mean, he's all the way out here. He's got to be even with pull 3 or pull 4. And then I have to pull him back in to get him into that entry. And that's a really hard effort for him as well. So we've got a collection turn that I was late for. So I should be blinded and reconnected before he even takes off for this jump. Or front to a blind, yeah. So instead of sitting here staring at him, I should be looking over my left shoulder at this point. Instead, he launches an extension, goes super, super wide, and now I'm stuck trying to get him over this jump, which he also launches an extension, and then I'm trying to jam him through this throttle into this backside, and no wonder he doesn't take the bar on that one. What a good boy. But you can see I'm very, very much in his way. So he's staring at me. I'm in the landing space, and he pops up that extra couple of inches to get out of the way. We come through here. I'm late getting out of the way here, so I'm trying to tell him, come take this jump, but I'm also 100% blocking this jump. I should have just blind crossed this and been out of the way, but I didn't trust him. So now I'm doing this awkward front cross. He comes in super, super late, barely makes it through the uprights, and fortunately makes it over the bar because he's a good boy. Okay, teeters are a long-standing thing for us. I tried to train a hit and go on my first border collie, and it was a bad choice. And now I have years of bad muscle memory on him that I'm trying to overcome. I don't know if the teeter is ever going to be great on him, but I need it to not be a fly off. So you'll often see me babysit the teeter because that wasn't too bad. But again, it puts me a little bit late here. I'm barely sneaking by. You can see me just tuck myself around that wing, and that causes him to drop the bar. as opposed to if I had been already on the takeoff side of this jump, he probably would have kept the bar up. A-frames are nice. I usually don't have to say anything about that. So we've got another collection jump where I did a reverse spin, and again, I'm late. So I should be turned all the way in before now. Now he's one stride out, wondering what's happening, and just launching an extension. And then I'm going to try and pull him down the SERP line again, as he almost hits me. He's a really good boy for saving my butt on that. But he has to take this bar because he comes out here so far an extension, and I drop my connection. So I just turn my head to start looking at where we're running. He's in too tight on the bar. So we take that and then finish out the run. So this is pretty indicative. I mean, I can keep going. I have 10 videos here. But you guys are probably getting the idea, right? There's a lot of like me being late, but there's also a lot of mental crap of like me not trusting things. So maybe we'll do a little fast forward and we'll take a look at what it's looking like now. And then we can kind of talk about how to get there. Bum, bum, bum. So I pulled two from Canada. Let's look at the finals run because that one makes me happy. So this is our national finals winning run. I will say for reference, I had no idea how anybody else did. I was so nervous going into this run. I sat out in the car for the entire class, and my car, I could still hear people cheering. So I had my noise canceling headphones on out in the car, trying not to be overly nervous. I came into the arena to watch one student run and then immediately left the arena again and went back out there. So I went into this run second to last. I had no idea how anybody else had done. I didn't know that I just needed a clean run. I sort of assumed that I just had to lay it down. So here I do a lead out because I'm managing his teeter. So you know that's on my training list. So we'll take a look at this first jump here. He's a little early, but it's really not too bad, especially considering that this is a finals and you have to remember how loud it is inside the buildings on a finals. So if he was going to be crazy, this is where I would expect it to be. And again, now let's look at his jump form. Look how much he rocks back on his hind end. Like, this just makes me so happy. I sent this to my fitness coach. He's powering off evenly on both legs. He gets so much power here when he thrusts himself up, and he's got this beautiful rounding jump arc. That makes me happy. So we have our super managed cheater because it was quite questionable. I mean, she gave us a small gift. So in motion, it doesn't look that bad, but it's certainly not anybody's criteria. So we have been working this very hard because I hate this. Push this backside. The cool thing is you can see I'm already starting to rotate before he takes off for the jump. He knows clearly that he's coming in to make this turn, and he jumps already looking for me here, which is wonderful. Sort of waiting patiently for him. This opening was a little bit slow feeling. A little early on the double, not terrible. I had to cue a turn there, so you see a nice decel. So upper body is already turned in, deceleration, and my feet are already turned in, and he's a stride and a half away from the jump. This is like ideal timing for this big dog. Actually, the upper body already starts to turn as he lands the double. So he is getting information super, super early about what we're doing here. A-frames are always bomb. Send him here. This was the one part that was dicey. I planned this in and out of this tunnel. and all of a sudden had a moment of like, oh shit, I'm not going to make it. And I was a hair late and he came out a little bit behind me, but we fought for it. Ate a little yardage there, so that could have been tighter. Tunnel to weaves was really straightforward. Leaving him in the weave poles so I can get ahead. And then we're turning out of this tunnel. So I already start turning. He's two strides out of the entry to the tunnel, and I'm already turning and decelled. And what that means is when he comes out of that tunnel, I'm already looking for him on my right. And look at what a tight turn I get here, considering that this is a pretty straight tunnel with a big run line leading up to it. Like, that's just perfection. Get him through these two jumps here. This dog walk tunnel discrimination does not look like it should be this bad, but apparently it was eating teams alive. So I'm already opened up. He's not even out of the tunnel, and I already have my chest open to him to call him up the dog walk here, connect with him, make sure he's heading up the dog walk. And then really beautiful dog walk on his way out and straight out the ring. So that was just like perfection. Making the plan that I knew worked the best for us. Going into spaces, we always do better if we can go in and drive lines than if we sit back and layer. If I sit back and layer, I'm giving my dogs choices and giving them moments of doubt. And even if they pick the right choice, they are losing a little bit of speed as they're trying to think about which choice to make. So I really wanted to make sure that I was driving things through this. Let's take a look at one more biathlon jumping. This was a pretty awesome course. So choose to do a lead out here. It's not going to go until I hit play. Because there was a critical point at the end of a straight tunnel that I had to be at. So do our lead out. Get out here. Take a moment to connect with him, breathe, and then release him. So he already knows before he even takes the first jump and heads into this tunnel that he's turning out of this tunnel because of the way that I'm standing. So he already has all of that information. So then he comes out of the tunnel, gives me a really nice turn here. Nice collection over the jump. And again, I'm cueing collection for him for this tunnel exit as he is landing this jump. So he knows when he comes out of this tunnel, he's going to be turning and coming back into me. So this is just giving him information miles earlier than I would have this time last year. Comes out of the tunnel right there looking for me, gives me a nice efficient line over this backside. I'm connected with him over the backside, turn it into my blind cross and head down to this tunnel. This weave pole entry was wicked. It was killing people. It was right up against the wall. It's one of those, like, you just got to trust your dogs. I watched so many teams overhandle the weave pole entry one way or another, and they actually messed their dogs up doing that. Your dogs either got this or they don't. Send to this backside, and I intentionally went in here to drive him and get a little more speed off that backside as we start running up through here. Delayed the blind cross here to make sure that he came in and committed. What a lot of teams were doing is starting this blind cross early, so they would already be rotated now. And the dogs just see this big tunnel out here, and the handlers have completely disconnected. So I delayed the blind cross, make sure he committed to the jump, then turned and went. Again, cueing collection for him out of that tunnel. Could have been a little earlier. Comes out of the tunnel turning pretty nicely though to head over the wall jump, and I've still got miles of time to get down here and get a blind cross done to push him instead of leaving this up to chance with a throttle wrap. Because if I'm over here throttle wrapping, now I'm opening up this tunnel mouth. Broad to an in. So again, this is fin timing. I have to start opening up for the in as he's in the air over the broad to give him enough time to come in for this. Unfortunately, four-legged flicks was a little late. Here we go. So now he knows he's coming in for this in down here, and then we just head straight out of the ring. So very different run from the way that things looked earlier. So it's kind of a combination of things. I would say I think the mental management for me is the catalyst for everything. It's starting from that place where you become comfortable enough with yourself to make mistakes. And that frees you up to start looking at things really, really critically. And instead of sort of making excuses for things, you can just take the things that are happening in your runs as data and use those data points to inform your training. Once I started looking at things critically, it kind of opened up the world for the fitness side of things. And I've said this to many people, especially around bar knocking. I know it's a really big issue, particularly with the big dogs. And I know there's a lot of ways to deal with it. And I've probably done almost all of them in my tenure. I really feel like bar knocking either comes down to handler timing or the dog's fitness. And sometimes you have some dogs that can move heaven and earth to get over a bar for you with not very good fitness, but that's not the case for 95% of the dogs out there. I actually got myself into a bit of a problem with Finn where I had been told to negatively mark dropped bars. And instead, it created this issue where he started over jumping. So everything became an extension jump and he would just launch, because how do you not hit a bar? You jump it bigger. I had European trainers telling me that he just couldn't collect because he's a big dog. And actually, these videos don't really show his really poor collection. Like, he used to really, really, really launch. It's not the case that he couldn't collect. The problem was he didn't have the fitness to be able to do it. So once we went back and put the fitness in place, then I could actually train the collection cues and hold him to a criteria there. And once I stopped negatively marking the bars. The other problem with negatively marking bars is if you have a dog who tends to worry or tends into over arousal, when you negatively mark the bars, you add worry to an already worried dog. And then this can escalate your arousal issues. So I think my advice on people having bar issues is to take a good look at fitness and let's start there. And if it doesn't resolve it, then we probably need to do some one jump training, some training about where your takeoff point needs to be, and go from there. People don't want to hear that though, because it's easier to negatively reinforce something in the moment than it is to take a step back and spend 3 months doing fitness. And I think the other thing for me was really working on the mental game to find the joy in running again. Trials had become incredibly stressful for me. It felt like, I wasn't performing well as a handler, but also like now I'm a trainer and I do this professionally, and who's ever going to want to come learn from me if I'm performing this way? So being able to get to a place where I wasn't trying to perform to impress anybody. I was trying to just run for myself, and that freed me up to do things like my running lead outs that really work really, really well for Finn. Instead of being worried about how stupid would I look if I do a running lead out and my dog breaks. Well, sometimes he breaks. He's not a robot. But like the less worried I am about it, the less likely he is to pick up on my stress and break the running lead out. I feel like that's a lot. I feel like I've talked at you guys for a really long time. So I'm just going to pause here and open things up and see if anybody has any questions that they want to ask.
I'm not sure if I'm able to be heard by everyone right now.
I can hear you. Sarah's giving
Okay.
thumbs up so other people can hear you too.
Okay. Okay. I guess my biggest question is like I started out with like a different breed and then I went to border collies. And like my biggest thing that I feel like is that I can't think quickly enough in the moment. Like I teach and like I watch my students and I can like I'm very good at like saying like you were late on that. You were late here. You need to be standing here. You need to be like positioned like this, whatever. Like I'm very good at like seeing that with other people, but then when I feel like I run myself, like I'm like, oh Jesus, like I'm always being told I'm late and I'm like, okay, I get that, but like how do I fix that in myself? Like because while I'm running, like my brain just doesn't like operate that quick.
So I think there's two factors to it. And part of this is I've worked with you in person, so I can also see what the problem is that I see. Um, One piece is we have to reprogram the muscle memory on your timing. So
Okay.
if we get like we have had moments where your timing has been correct,
Okay.
but that to you feels really weird and really, really early. So we have to
Okay.
take that from a place where it feels weird to a place where it's second nature for you and
Okay.
you're automatically doing that. Um, the other piece though is when we're competing, we can't be in that self-analysis mode. That's
Yeah.
training mode. And especially when you're running fast dogs, the split second where you stop to think, oh, that wasn't very good, that's the
Hmm.
split second where you lose connection with your dog and things start to go off the wheels, right? Or
Yeah.
the other way, it's that split second of, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this. And then everything falls apart, right?
Yeah.
So, from a mental standpoint, it becomes trying to break you out of your conscious mind and moving you into your subconscious mind. You can't be in your conscious mind and be performing at your best. This is like professional athletes talk about hitting that flow state. Flow is subconscious.
Okay.
Um, the best example I heard of this is like if you go run down the stairs, you just like run down the stairs. Like it's no big deal, right? Like you ran down the stairs. But if I stop you at the top of the stairs and I'm like, oh man, you better be really careful because like you might fall and you could break your leg and you could do this and you could do that. Well, then you're not going to be able to run down the stairs. And now you're going to be starting to think about where your feet are and you're going to slow
Right.
yourself down. It's something that your subconscious mind knows how to do. And when your conscious mind focuses on it, it actually slows you down and pulls you back.
Okay.
So there's
That
two
makes a lot of
sides to that
sense.
equation.
Okay.
Any other questions? I know Sarah threw up a whole bunch in the chat. So before we get to Sarah's chat questions.
I have one. So you saw me trial. Is it today? Monday, yesterday. Um, my dog is my first agility dog. She's my first border collie, and she is so fast. And I think I don't want to slow her down, but it's like she's a Ferrari and I don't know how to drive it. It's like I don't have the keys. So that's kind of like where I'm at. Like I don't want to take away like her speed,
Mhm.
but I need to learn like as a handler how to handle a dog as fast as she is, being like a green agility handler.
This is like my first off, your dog is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You guys
She's
came out,
fun.
they came out for their first ever UKI show yesterday and like nailed one of my speed stakes courses and it was phenomenal. She's got this cute little border collie named Clue. Um it's a bit of a dichotomy in agility. And Tiffany, you'll appreciate this. So like I come from horses. In horses, we don't put new people on new horses. That's a recipe for somebody to die. In agility, we very, very commonly have new people with new dogs who don't know their jobs. So you do have a little bit of an uphill battle because you've got a faster driver your dog. The biggest key to running a fast dog is to training skills better. And you're well on your way there. Like your skills are already quite solid. It's being able to layer things. It's being able to handle from a distance. I think the biggest misnomer when people watch some of the European handlers run is they're like, oh, well, they're young and they're fit and they're fast. Well, okay. But if you watch where the handler really is when they're sending their dog to something, they're far, far away. And then they leave and they get to their next critical point. They're not, cookie luring their dog around the course. That's how you're not going to be successful. So it really becomes about continuing to build independence on all of these skills throughout the course so that you can be doing whatever you want to be doing while you're sending your dog to these things. Does that help?
He's also a baby too, which I think kind of adds, it's a triple whammy. But yeah, I guess like working on just skills instead of like full sequences. For me as a new agility person, it's like what skill do I do today? Like I don't always have like the mindset where I'm like, okay, let's go, work on this. I'm like sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to work on this sort of thing because I'm so new to the sport.
Yeah. Having a little bit of direction there would certainly help. Sort of having a plan for this is a skill and here's how we're going to progress it, and this is what the end result needs to look like, and it's going to be over X many weeks that we're going to build this.
And then how to like prioritize like which ones to focus on based on where she is now and like where we want to go and all that.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of that's going to be dictated by your goals.
And
the venues that you like to run in the most, because there's going to be different skills that matter more in certain venues. So like Sarah Indano, who's on this call, is she has a really cool Aussie, and so AKC has a lot to offer for less typical breeds. I mean, they're still Aussies, but so we kind of talked about how maybe prioritizing getting the weave poles closed is more important than being able to do every single entry around the clock at this point in time. I still want her to be able to do all of those at some point. But for AKC, largely we see 90-degree or shallower entries. We don't see these like big sends all the way down the weave poles. We don't see forced layers. We don't see things like that there. So if the goal is to get out and get trialing soon, then we need to have 12 poles closed with a relatively easy entry. And we don't necessarily need to spend a ton of time working around the clock right now, but we still need to work on it at some point.
I have one more question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about like the dropping bars and how that's usually like handler error or like an impulse, like issue, like with the dog or arousal issue or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, how do you address arousal issues? Like, what's your kind of like training program or your philosophy or like? Because obviously that's a thing with like border collies a lot.
Yes, arousal issues are a thing. So it's one of those things that we kind of have to feel out. It's all about how do we put more brain back in the dog. And for many dogs, it starts before they even walk into the ring. And we have to start adjusting the emotions that are happening inside of the ring that are happening outside of the ring. So maybe like a more tangible way to talk about this would be thinking about my dog Rue, the black and white border collie. So she struggles with arousal and will just like face plant into the tire and face plant into the first jump. She'll do things like go and take the back side of the first jump, have to lead change away from me to go do it, work really hard. And what happened was we started watching her videos on the start line. And you see, when I ask her to line up, I start getting a lot of lip licking. I start getting the flat ears. I start getting a lot of looking away, looking in different directions, avoidance kind of behaviors. So all of this is telling me that she's got a lot of feelings about the start line, which made sense because a lot of times I would have issues around the start line, broken start lines, plus this smashing first bar, those things. But then we'd settle into the run and the rest of the run would be quite nice. Well, we took a step back from there, and I actually had somebody video me outside of the ring. And we realized that all of these emotions start outside of the ring before we even bring her into the ring. And what it came down to for her specifically is that she wants a job the whole time. So Finn is really good to me in that I can hang with him next to the ring on a loose leash, and he can sit there and watch other dogs and come in and just have as much head in the game. Rue is not that dog. If she is just sitting there undirected, she's pretty sure that she's doing something wrong and she's really worried about it. So I have to give her a job the whole time that we're waiting in the lineup queue outside of the start line. Stays are a job. So largely we play tricks games out there, we do stays, and I'm taking some notice of what her mental state is, and I have some techniques to help bring her down in mental state. But honestly, like if it's been raining for 4 days and they haven't done anything, and I bring her out to a really high arousal trial, the first run she's probably going to be pretty high no matter what I do with my techniques. So it becomes more about understanding where she's at and then knowing what my expectations are for her based on that and sort of adjusting them. The other piece of it was, although she's very resilient in many ways, she's also very soft, and negatively marking things on course would start to add up. And then we would just like explode and she would just go completely off the rails. And then this was also cumulative across runs. So it's actually really funny. My novice A dog was one of those dogs where it was just like, you can't, I couldn't sigh, or it would be like somebody unplugged him. He's like, oh, I was a bad boy.
Yeah.
And then I got these border collies and I was like, oh, good. I never have to deal with that ever again. Like I was the person that was like, yeah, because he's off coursey, right? And then with Rue, it's like, oh, here we are again. I can't negatively reinforce anything. And that is so subtle as like, I can't break flow on the course. So now it really becomes about like, if something goes wrong on the course, it's how do I keep her in flow in a way that's safe? So obviously if she turns the wrong way for a contact approach, I have to repeat that or it's not safe. But like if she just drops a bar, even if she runs by stuff, a lot of times I just won't even do anything. I'll just keep going and pretend like nothing happened. It's more important to keep her confidence up. I also changed the way that I was training her. So it became less about like, I wonder how I can challenge you today, and more about like, I wonder how I can make you feel awesome today. Especially these last 2 weeks, we're heading into the US Open and EO tryouts. 2 weeks before an event, I'm not putting new skills on my dogs. Honestly, 3 months before an event, I'm not putting new skills on my dogs. Even if they understood it, I would not have confidence in it at that point to use it at the event. So the best thing that I can do with my training right now is just build their confidence. So for things like running dog walks, we're just doing straight exits. Because I'm like, how can I make her feel like she's the best and she knows how to do her dog walk? Give her the easiest, most straightforward exit with a pre-placed reward for her to drive to out there. And it's actually working really, really well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Sarah, maybe we'll get to some of your questions now. Okay, so your first question is, what if we aren't?
I do have a question if you
Oh yeah, go ahead.
if you have time.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry. Um, my question is like a mindset. One, I'm kind of like, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on like, is there space for some kind of realisticness in the sense of like, maybe my dog really isn't like fast enough to make a team, but like that doesn't mean I can't continue to enjoy what we're doing or like continue to learn and get better. But like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if I don't acknowledge her limits, it's kind of like I don't like I'm trying to make her something that she isn't.
So I think there's space for whatever thoughts you want. It just depends on what impact those thoughts have on you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that thought of maybe this dog isn't fast enough to make a team actually felt like a personal failure on my part. And that's where that thought was not constructive. Now, obviously, I went from mixed breeds to border collies. So somewhere along the line, I recognized that my mixed breed dog was not fast enough to make the team. And that I needed something in the faster world. But I think what was a little damaging for me was this thought of like, it was like internalizing the negative thoughts that other people say about other people's dogs, and then assuming that other people were judging me with those thoughts and basically using them to judge myself, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
I think like I go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, I think if you truly think your dog is not as fast, and I would have to actually look at the times to make that determination. But you can have that thought and it doesn't drag you down and you're not judging yourself based on it and you're not limiting yourself based on it, then I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think where I kind of struggle is like at least in the last couple of months it's been like okay, we're working really hard, I can see improvements, like, and yet the times, like the way her times stack up to the top dogs just isn't really changing. Like when we, like taking one really nice run comparing to it, like I try not to pay attention to the times from the runs where okay, there was a really wide turn there, like I can, like that's, but I think that's what's really been like getting to me lately is like despite the improvements and the work that I've been putting in and our runs are consistently getting better, but it's like the times are just not really changing.
So I think there's two pieces to that. One is you could be the consistent dog. You could be
Mhm.
the dog who maybe, doesn't blow the other dogs out of the water by 2 to 3 seconds, but you show up with consistent clean runs over and over and over again. And there's multiple teams where that impacts your points and your team selection status overall, right?
Yeah.
I think the other piece too would be to get really, really obsessive about how to get every possible second out of her. Things like
Yeah.
running starts and driving her off the starts. Like I'll save you 0.2 seconds if we do that instead of a lead out. Things where people might choose to hang back and handle at a distance where you should probably be driving in and driving the line a little bit harder. That sort of stuff where I think
Yeah.
we could probably save you like 10th of a second here, 10th of a second there, those kind of things.
Yeah. Okay.
She runs 20 for the international stuff.
24.
Oh, I The 20 class is hard because there's so many of them. Well, in intermediates, okay, but 20 for WAO is hard because there's like 300 of them. And that really has kind of become like you have to be perfect and fast. But for the 24s, there's definitely still a lot of room. I mean, I don't know how your times stack up to like Mackenzie Mento and Safari, but they are a consistent team, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yes. And I will say our times are very close to Safari. Like with the running dog walk now against Safari stop dog walk, we like edged her out by like a 10th of a second in one run recently. So it's like we're right on that line. And I mean, this is like I make goals for myself, like my goal for EO trials this year is just to get a run. If I can get runs without time faults, that will be like an improvement for us. Like,
Yeah.
Which is like, I mean, we won't be going to World Team Tryouts anymore probably because of the Kelpie issue, but we are right on that line with Safari and Mackenzie of like trying to get those runs without time faults at tryouts. Is like those would be our best runs. If we can do our best runs, I think we can do it. Like perfect runs.
Yeah, so then we just need to make your best runs your average runs. And that's totally doable.
Yeah.
We just need to move your bar up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Mackenzie's been on multiple teams, right? So it's 100% possible with the dog running that speed to be on the teams and to do well.
Yeah.
It seems like a big hurdle
Okay.
right now. But we can get you there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely have had the thought of like, because I do think that Z's potential is to be the consistent dog that's fast enough. Like, I mean, because she is, I acknowledge, like, I feel lucky. Like, I have a dog that's fast enough that, for example, at the US Open, she's fast enough that if we run clean in speed stakes finals, she will cut off of like the top 10%. Like, she's that fast, probably, So it's like she's not slow, but I do kind of see that, just like you were kind of saying, that she is where her place is on the team is to be the consistent dog that's fast enough to have value on the team. Like, so we need to get the consistency part nailed instead of just, we're kind of getting there.
Yes. We'll get the consistency up, and I still think we could probably shave anywhere from half a second to a second off your runs consistently. And that would be a big deal.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
yeah,
okay, Safari has a good day and beats you, but on the whole, you're running faster than her. And when I went out to West Coast last year, Safari was beating us.
Yeah.
So it's doable.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Okay, Sarah and Dano, we'll get to your questions here in the chat. What if you're not as high level as I've shown here? Can I work with you if I'm trying to debut my first dog? Absolutely not. I don't want to work with you, Sarah. I'm just kidding. No, what I'm really here for is people that have a joy for learning and that want to do the work. So if you're looking to get out and start trialing your dog as fast as possible with sort of like band-aided methods, like this isn't it. We're not going to do that. I mean, shoot, guys, I spent 30 minutes looking through 4 videos. Like that's what we're going to do. And we're going to nitpick stuff. We're going to get into the nitty details. I ran an in-person masterclass with some students who are trying out for tryouts. And I took one student back to plank work for 2 on 2 off to get her dog walk better. And it was super, super valuable. But like we went all the way back to foundations. So that's mostly, I'm looking for people that are willing to take a step back if that's what's required to tighten up some of these skills. Adding fitness into what you're already doing probably means you're going to have to cut back a little bit on agility. That's just the way it is. There's only so many hours in the day, right? So it means you're going to have to understand that the fitness is value adding to agility. And it's a priority. It's not just something you do if you have a little bit of extra time or you got stuck inside when it rained. Same thing, like the mental work is not fun. Taking a really hard look at yourself and trying to figure out where some of this baggage and some of these thoughts are coming from so that you can show up and be your best self and not sort of like a neurotic mess. That stuff is hard. But if you're here to work on it, I'm more than thrilled to do that. Sarah's asking, what sort of information am I looking for from you guys when we get started? So if you decide to come into one-on-one video review coaching, we'll spend a lot of the first call kind of doing a get to know you. I want to know what your goals are. I'd like to see a couple of videos so I can kind of assess where you're at. My personal experience has been that people aren't great at assessing where they're at, and usually what they tell me lacks a lot of information. So I would want to see some example videos. I want to know how much time realistically you have to dedicate to training. I know we haven't all quit our careers to become full-time agility trainers. So we need to talk about like what time you do have to train, and then we need to look at your goals and think about, is this all realistic? I do have people who work full-time jobs and have kids, and we're able to work things around the schedule. That's not easy. That takes time management. So just putting that out there. As far as fitness exercises, yes, I can absolutely give you fitness exercises. Uh-oh, I did something. Oh no. There we go. Sorry, I made my screen go black somehow. I can give you guys fitness exercises. Full disclosure, these are going to be exercises that are coming from I work at a PT and rehab place now 2 days a week, and it's what we're doing with them there. And it will also come from the fitness programs that I have been using one-on-one with a fitness trainer. So there's a lot of really good information in there, and I can help kind of pass that along to you guys. How many videos can you send per week? So this is kind of like getting into the details. I'm thinking a 6-minute video cap per week. Just because I don't want you guys to send me, a 20-minute video that has like 3 good repetitions in it and a whole lot of you playing with your dog. That's nice. I'm happy that you play with your dog. I don't need to watch it. So you can send me up to 6 minutes, and then we'll review them together in the meeting. It's possible that there may be some small exercises where you just want clarification on something, and you're just going to send me a little tidbit of like, hey, am I doing this right? And I can like easily just message back to you and be like, yeah, you're on the right track, or something along those lines. Videos can be from trials or from training. So it can be from competitions that you're at recently. We can take a look at older competitions. It can be from classes that you're already in, or if you rent a training facility. Staying away a little bit from the live training type thing. My experience with that so far has been that a lot of times the video and the audio feed cut out on people, and it becomes really, really hard to actually get anything done in the session because we're just messing with technical problems the whole time. So whatever you're working on in class, I will give you some drills and some exercises. I've built out a little bit of a YouTube library for some of my favorite drills. And you can send me video of those drills if I give them to you. Let's see. Caitlin also has some questions in here.
You just answered them with everything that you answered with Sarah, so you could skip mine.
Okay, cool.
So,
yeah, game
thanks.
plan.
Yeah.
We'll certainly, what I would love to do is sit down and kind of look at, so these will be a 10-week package essentially. So it would cover 3 months, and we'll give ourselves a couple of off weeks to have scheduling issues or whatever. I would love to kind of look at a overall calendar for the 3 months and sort of look at what are the key events that you have going on during that time period. what are your goals? What do we expect to be able to achieve? And then also give you a suggestion of what your average week should look like in terms of breakdown between agility training, fitness, and then other stuff that you do in your life, because you're allowed to do other things that aren't just do stuff for your dogs, right? So I would love to sort of like work that around and make sure that we have a calendar that actually works for you guys. Just so you guys know, yes, I'm a full-time trainer right now. When I had my facility, I was training my dogs 3 times a week. That was it. I can get a lot done 3 times a week. And actually, usually by the 3rd day, I was actually bored and unmotivated, and I kind of like half-assed that training session. It didn't really need it. So when I talk about putting in fitness and things like that, well, if I'm only doing agility 3 times a week, then putting fitness in seems a lot more reasonable. The other piece of that too is like, if you haven't already figured it out, trialing every single weekend is not doing you any favors. So if you're thinking about this and going, well, shoot, if I train 3 times a week and I trial on the weekends and you want me to give my dogs some off days and then you want me to do fitness, I don't know when this is all going to happen. Well, the answer is we probably need to back down on the trialing. And that's also going to depend on your goals and if you're trying to qualify for something. And that's a conversation that we can have. These are levers that we pull depending on different times of your life. But something to really think about is the winter is usually a really, really nice time to give your dogs a break from agility. And maybe thinking about that's a good time to ramp up on fitness, bank some fitness then, and then come back to agility in usually after the holidays sometimes, because there's usually too much going on anyways. Is there any point in time where a skill just isn't going to click for your dog? No. So like a start line lead out. Held their start line all weekend, but I didn't lead out per se. I just got past the first jump and released him, which is an improvement. No, especially not a skill like a start line lead out. Like that 100% we can train. We just have to figure out what it is in there that is impacting your ability to be able to lead out the way that you want to. I think what we might do instead is say like, the skill is maybe not the best choice for your dog. And I'm not thinking about a start line lead out, but I'm thinking about something like a throttle wrap, where if you're fast and you can get there, a push to the backside is always going to be faster than the throttle wrap. So, we put the throttle wrap in your arsenal so that if you get really, really stuck someday, you have it and you can use it, but it's not going to be your bread and butter. It's not going to be the thing that you go to all the time. Questions on mental management. Some tactics I've used running vastly different types of competing dogs. One of the biggest mental challenges is working between them. So that's hard to say. It kind of depends on what the thoughts are that you're having and what the specific challenges are that are in there. I've largely given up on trying to walk different course plans for different dogs. I have my 3 dogs. They're all trained with the same skills. I should be able to handle the course the same way. I may make minor adjustments. So for instance, for Finn, if I can get away with a running lead out, I'm going to do that. With Rue, because we have the arousal issue on the start line, I'm going to do a walking lead out. But that's a really small change for me to make in the moment. In terms of adjusting to different timings, it really becomes about being able to take some time to put yourself mentally in the time that you need for the different dog, and remember which dog you're running and sort of envision where you're going to be for different things to happen. Let's see, one more. Would this program be helpful or appropriate for you to help me train running contacts on young dogs? Yes, we can do running contacts through this program as well. That is totally possible. We can do it all. Running contacts, we can do stopped contacts. We could do fancy skills, we can do straightforward skills. Anybody have any other questions before I know we've gone a little late. Summarize the program before we go. That's a great question, Sarah. So it's a 10-week private training program. Like I said, I figure that would probably take us through about 3 months if we have weeks where we need to skip because of one or the other schedule. The idea is we would meet weekly so that we can build some consistency and sort of stay on top of this. I've done things before where it's like a group class and we just drop you all into a Facebook together. And the experience I've had with that is, people kind of come in and they pay attention for the first like 3 days, maybe 2 weeks if I'm lucky. And then everybody just kind of like peters off and dies. So I don't want that to happen. And I want to make sure that it's not just sort of a generalized training. I want to make sure that we're really honing in on the issues that you specifically are struggling with. We would do sort of an assessment in our first call and set some goals for you. And then I want to come back at the end of the 10 weeks so that we can kind of review the progress that you've made and see how we're sort of stacking up against the goals. See how we're getting you there. Pretty comprehensive. We'll talk about all the subjects we talked about tonight. Everything from agility skill training through to canine fitness, through to your mental management, through to dog arousal or under arousal, and how to get the most out of our dogs pretty holistically there. And time management. Yeah. Okay, how do you sign up? Signups are rolling, or is there an application window? So signups are rolling. Basically you can reach out to me through email or Facebook Messenger. Just let me know. The time that I have available to do this right now is going to be on Fridays. So we'll have to find a time on Friday that works for both of us. My goal would be for us to kind of set a time and we'll stick with it for the whole 10 weeks so that you have a little bit of continuity and you're not like, oh, today it was at 7 a.m. and next week it's at 7 p.m. and I'm confused. We'll just stick with your time. Cost is it's $14.99 for the 10-week session. We can break that up into 1 month installments. So that would be divide by 3, which I can't do in my head right now because I drove too far. It's a cost. It's an investment. I will say, if you're here, it's because you've been sitting on a plateau and the training that you've been doing to this point is not going to get you over that hump. So that means you've got to make a change somewhere. If you think about scaling back a little bit on trials, like we talked about, a lot of times that'll make up for the gap in what you're used to paying for agility training and what will get you to the next place. But I also understand, not everybody has that in the budget at the moment. That's valid. It's totally fine. No judgment over here. Sarah's saying if you want to do as a prep for a specific event. Ooh, timing relative to the event. I'm worried that we're tight on invitational right now because that's in April. I would almost want to do it starting 6 months before an event. Maybe even earlier. But I think from like an agility skills and fitness standpoint, 6 months before the event would give you time to build a skill and then have confidence using it at a big event. The reason I say earlier is I'm thinking about the mental management stuff. Shit, I've been working with a coach for over a year now, and early this summer was kind of like, I don't know if I need her anymore. And then, stuff in my life blew up in August and I was like, oh my God, thank God I still have her. So that's one of those, 3 months before an event, I think is not enough time for us to put any new skills in place. And it wouldn't even give you really very much time to practice like some of the mental management techniques or things like that. Yeah. That's when I ran the master class, we ran it July through September, and the idea was to prepare people for tryouts. And I think it was really, really helpful for doing that. So now, starting at the beginning of September, they were done with the master class. They had built a whole lot of new skills, and now it's about executing them consistently at event after event as we roll towards tryouts. Cool. All right. We went a little long. I'm sorry for that. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me through email or Facebook. I will give you guys a little bit of a warning. There's a whole lot going on through the end of this year. So this would probably be something that we would start up either right before Christmas or early next year. It's just US Opens next week. Then we've got Thanksgiving weekend. Then we've got EO tryouts the weekend after that. And then I'm away at a training. So it's a little, but this gives you some time to think about things, figure out how this all fits into your overall training plans and your goals. Cool. See you guys later. Thanks for joining.